Second step in the heat system is to look at the essential affect system. Like we go deeper in the emotional body. In the last slide, we saw vantage point is the emotional body and the karmic body. And we said these are the general things we will do. But to go deeper into this part of affect healing, we will go into the essential affect system. The essential affect system of the heat model, where we go into that. First there is desire activation. Desire activation leads to affect generation. Affect generation has to be whatever the affect is. Desire activation leads to desire X with a particular strength. This leads to affect generation of Y of a particular strength. This Y has to be regulated in various ways, and then Z is the excess affect which goes into symptom formation. So when we look at the essential affect system, we look at these points. So you can see here I have put the levels. L is level, high, moderate and low. H is high, M is moderate, L is low. So in terms of stimulus strength, for any particular patient, let us say affect generation system in affect generation is high, and one of the reasons is stimulus strength is high, which means, let us say the mother or the father is really very strong, dominating, and let us say almost trauma giving. So the strength of the stimulus from outside is very high. Over a period of time, the biological clock which generates affect often creates high and low by itself. It's moderate in level. Psychological clock is high. The person wants to go back to the same feelings again and again. He has entered into a tragic holding state. Karmic element is high. The environment is around her is such that affect generated is high. Deprivation is high, other factors are moderate, and therefore the desire or the causal factor for creating affect is X at the end of all of this. And then this desire X, which is high in its intensity, is evaluated. Sensitivity is high, affinity is high, free life energy is high, life energy is high, other factors moderate. Why is the affect generated? This has to be then partly expressed, partly sublimated, and so on. In case of a particular patient, let us say, expression is low because if the person expresses one's feelings, the person is attacked by people around that person. Maybe family members, maybe friends, maybe teachers, whoever. So expression is low. Opportunities for sublimation are moderate. Affect content is high, but even after containing high amount of affect, excess affect remaining is high. Tolerance is high, other factors moderate, but at the end of it all, excess pathological affect, which cannot be defended against in any way, cannot be controlled in any way, is high. And this Z, which is high, then goes on to create symptoms. So let us say for a particular person, this is the H, M and L. This will differ from person to person. So where we see H, those are the points we have to focus upon. Can we do something about this H? Yes, we can request the person to keep away from the stimulus, that person who hurts him. Observe the biological clock and try to control it. Observe the psychological clock and try to control it. Divert your attention somewhere else. Look at the cost benefit analysis. Decide if you want to continue to do it. For the karmic factor, use spiritual practices, and anything that you think from a spiritual domain can help with this. If you don't believe, of course, you don't have to do anything. Environment, use the concept of third space. Every day go to a place which is neither home nor office, where nobody knows you otherwise, and you can spend 1 hour there. It's very necessary for good health. This third space is necessary not only for patients but actually for all of us. All of us need to spend half an hour to 1 hour every day in a third space which is neither home nor office. Deprivation, try to fulfill as far as possible in a safe way. Other factors, try to manage whatever you can. Now, what to do depends upon the specifics. And for that, we need the patient with us. Desire strength, observe the desire strength and accept it. That I have a high desire for X experiences. Say, for example, I want everyone to be a good parent to me, and I want to behave like a child with everybody. The desire is high. If somebody does not oblige me, then I get hurt, and the evaluation system is such I develop huge amount of negative affect, sadness, anger. Sensitivity is high. It's one of the most difficult things to work upon. In some cases, it may be so difficult that one just has to accept that it is so. So some people have to accept this as a invariable constitutional element. Others can work upon it. Similarly, life energy, we have to sublimate it. Affect expressed is low. This has to be made high. Because in this column, we have to work not only on the highs, but also on some of the lows. If affect expressed is low, we have to increase it. We can involve therapy, we can involve talking to friends, we can involve art and craft, expressing oneself, joining social groups, but affect expression has to be there. At times it can also be sports, either as an audience or as a player, you leave out your aggression there. Enhancing affect tolerance capability, that's another element we have to work on. And then look at the symptom and the psychosomatic sickness, if any, and take measures to reduce the damage by this, which will include homeopathy, which will include pranic healing, and which will include psychotherapy. So we look at the essential affect system in this way, in a far more elemental way than otherwise. And this can be applied in general or to an event or to a category of events. So now question is what to do. The two bodies we have talked about. First one we said internalization of emotional body healing, internalization of a good object, affect healing, which can involve psychoanalysis, ISTDP, emotion centered therapy, AUM meditation, art therapy, looking at this table, to find out where work is necessary and creating a package for working on those elements, and joining social groups. So these are the three things we recommend. For the karmic body, we have meditation, self-observation, idol therapy, forgiveness, pranic healing, Reiki, yoga, tai chi. These all help in dealing with the karmic body. Now, what to do with the affect system? Let us say we looked at the table and we found out the problem areas where the H was there or L was there and it needed something to be done. So let us see. Stimulus strength, keep away from that stimulus as far as possible. If you are going to meet your mother thrice a week, make it once a week, if that is the problem. If you are going to meet a particular client 3 times a week, meet him twice a week if possible. Biological clock, observe and practice change. Psychological clock, same thing. Karmic thing, the same thing. Environment, create a good environment. If you cannot create, find some good environment where you have access, where you can be and go and be yourself, and bring about a change in your environment if necessary. Deprivation, fulfill to the extent possible. This is very important. In some cases, there is no option except experience. No amount of thinking, no amount of affect release helps unless the desire is fulfilled, or at least you try in experience to fulfill the desire. So if the deprivation is very deep and sticky, the only way out is experience. Fulfill the deprivation. And this takes us slightly away from the classical principle of psychoanalysis, which is reflecting, not acting. Here we are going into living, which is acting. And often it is necessary. In the heat model, it is not a taboo, although in classical psychoanalysis, it's a taboo. Living out. Other factors, very necessary to give a positive goal to oneself. The positive goal actually mobilizes our superego strength and superego positivity and superego joy. This is something we have not accessed in psychoanalysis enough. We talk in psychoanalysis about superego pathology, but not superego healing. When in fact, there is something called superego healing, superego happiness, and so on. And giving oneself a positive goal activates those parts of superego. Superego strength, superego sanction, superego happiness, superego courage. These things activate only when you give yourself a positive or an ideal goal. A complete package of superego benefits activate upon that. Logotherapy may be working on those lines. Desire strength, try to moderate it by being aware about it and analyzing it in process. As you go to fulfill your desire, in the process, as you observe it, it gets moderated. Evaluation system, how much affect to generate in response to an event, change it. This is where the central change is necessary. The central change, the most important change is here. How do you evaluate a stimulus? That will decide how much affect you will generate. One of the prime determinants is this. And this is where thought is involved.
Sir, this evaluation system is for what? Evaluation of
stimulus.
The emotion.
Stimulus. For example, say somebody slaps you in front of everyone. So then what happens? Suddenly you become angry and sad. So the feelings generated are anger, sadness, and revenge. Anger, sadness, humiliation, revenge. These are natural feelings.
Yes.
Now, how much of that should be activated in you? Now that will depend upon various factors, like who is humiliating you, how many people are present, how badly are you humiliated, is it in response to some mistake you have done, or is it for no mistake of yours? How sensitive are you? Are you experiencing this for the first time, or is it a regular thing? Were you brought up by your parents in a soft environment or a tough environment? Does it happen to everybody in that group, or has it happened only to you? So many factors are involved in evaluating what has happened. And after that evaluation, you will conclude unconsciously, right, that the event has happened in response to which I have to generate X amount of emotion, X amount of anger, Y amount of sadness, Z amount of humiliation, A amount of feeling for revenge, and so on. And this will differ from person to person, part constitutional, part the way we have been brought up, part based upon the specifics of the event. Right? All the three will play a part in finally activating a particular quantum of 3-4 different emotions. So this evaluation, that how do you evaluate a stimulus so that you can conclude how much volume, how much quantity of effects, maybe one effect or maybe many effects, have to be generated in response to that event. This is a rapid fire thinking which is at the root of emotional generation. And this, if you change, you can change future emotional generation. So when we talk about affect healing, we talk about two things. One, whatever effects are accumulated till now, how to release them. So emptying out whatever is accumulated, number one. And number two, how to prevent future accumulation. And the future accumulation will be prevented by working on this evaluation system. This is what is called in ISTDP as restructuring, a fundamental restructuring of the psyche. So if the same event happens again, you don't generate the same amount of emotions. So this is central to affect generation. Affect expression is very important because the more you express, less you have to repress. And if you cannot express in reality towards people who give you a difficult time, then you have to express it somewhere else, which can be therapy, which can be friend circles, which can be art, which can be watching a movie through identification, which can be sports, which can be meditation, which can be active affect release. Any of these ways can be used for affect expression. And sublimation. Part of it can be sublimated into work. So you can take up social work, you can take up any other work that you like, even business work, but part of your aggressive feelings can be sublimated into work. So enhance the sublimation, enhance the affect expression. So this is how heat takes us into what to do with the affect system, the elements of the affect system. The third level is elementals. The heat system looks at elementals. In Indian spirituality, there is a similar concept. It is called Bhut Shuddhi. Bhut meaning element, right? The most fundamental element. And Bhut Shuddhi, which means purification of most fundamental elementals. And 5 elementals are listed out metaphorically, which is earth, water, fire, space, and air. And these are metaphorical representations which include the literal but go beyond the literal. So we saw in earlier presentation on heat that the structural elementals, process elementals, and freedom elementals. And the process elementals are further divided into these 6 categories. Now what to do with them in our case? So in our case, we look at which are the elementals we need to work upon. And there is a list of almost 35 elementals. So if we list out the important ones for bipolar, for our case, let us first look at structural elementals. So the structural elementals are this, out of which we have to work on yin and yang, awareness, 5 bodies, chakras, collective unconscious, personal unconscious, and ego strength. This has to be ego strength. Others, we can leave it as it is. We don't have to do much. Now, how to work? In yin and yang, we have to go for acceptance of the masculine and the feminine parts in the person. Often, in bipolar, you also have a hidden bisexuality. Not always, but many times. And this may need self-acceptance. The man in the woman and the woman in the man. And this yin and yang integration starts with acceptance. So that is something to be enhanced. Awareness has to be enhanced about the cycles. So that next time a cycle happens, you know the cycle is starting, you can prepare for it, and if necessary, take more medication. Or go for more sessions in therapy. Or both. Five bodies, we have seen what to do. Chakras, clean and energize all chakras in this case, because in personality disorders which are chronic, usually all the chakras get involved over a period of time. So using pranic healing or Reiki technique or crystal healing technique, we clean and energize all chakras. Discover the program of life and try to work on appropriate activation and deactivation of archetypes, as we saw in the Jungian theory. To explore the personal unconscious, go for dream analysis. Many of them will not be able to give you dreams unless you really persist. And develop the ego strength, because many of them will face disintegration in the face of challenge. And that can become in some cases a trigger for starting off any part of the bipolar cycle. So this is what you can do for the first category of structural elements. So we saw here in heat model, the first category is structural elementals. So in case of bipolar, what can you do? Out of all the structural elementals, on some we have to work, others we have to let go. If to work, how to work, this is how we have to work upon them. Second, motivational elementals. This is the list of it. We don't have to work on all of them. On certain of them, we have to work. Fear has to be worked upon. And of course, when we say work upon, we have to bring it to the optimum zone. Anger needs to be worked upon, mostly released. Fear has to be understood, and much of it can be done by cognition. Pleasure, we have to widen the portfolio so that the person is able to get pleasure from far more sources than at present. In most cases, we see the pleasure portfolio is very narrow and only a few elements in the person's life. The life is not wide and rich enough. Creativity, we have to enhance it. Aesthetics, we have to work upon it. Encourage the person to go more for creative and aesthetic work. If they can cultivate a hobby, nothing like it. And we have to enhance expression not only in therapy, but by some self-work outside of therapy, the expression has to be enhanced. And spirituality, if the person is a believer, we can request him to go for spiritual healing practices. If the person is not a believer, it is his choice. So out of motivational elementals, some of them we have to work upon, and work on each of these is hard work. It's not easy. It takes a long time. Then we have the set of generic operational elementals. This is the complete list, out of which we have to work on some of them. One is sensitivity, the core of it. Some will be able to work on it, some will have to just accept it, but be aware of it and manage other parts of it, other parts of oneself. Affect stimulus strength, at times we have choice of avoiding it if it's very difficult. Affect generated, observe and understand and manage so far as possible. Affect expressed, we have to enhance it. Repressed, we have to reduce it. Containing capacity, we have to slowly enhance over a period of time. And often this can happen by internalizing the good container, who is the therapist. And whatever affect is contained, as far as possible, we should release it. So the containing capacity is emptied out and is available if new affect is generated to store them, contain it. And defenses have to be restructured so that the person moves from immature to mature defenses, from psychotic to neurotic defenses. Third category of process elementals called faculty elementals. This is the comprehensive list, 5 of them. We have to work essentially on this and this. For bipolar, create a positive goal for oneself. It's very, very important. Most people don't know what they want because they have never asked this question deeply enough. Therapy becomes a good occasion to explore that question. That if you did not have this problem, if you did not have the constraints of life you have, what do you want? Articulation of desire is very important for everyone, including the patient. So articulation of desire, and from there to create a vision for oneself, is very important. We can't stress enough the importance of this. Brings clarity, gives motivation, creates energy, and removes all the clutter and the cobwebs, unnecessary entanglements and concerns. The transpersonal element has to be understood and something to be done to heal it. It may involve something genetic. It may involve something from the collective unconscious, or if you believe, it may involve something from forces or beings that are beyond, that are not human. Fourth, characteristic elementals. This is the list, out of which we have to work on 4. Hope and positivity are very important. Positivity is at the root of generation of affect. If it is high, you generate more positive affect, less negative affect. If it is low, you generate more negative affect, and which is the root of all affect driven problems. Cheerfulness bring out it is inside. That is true for most people. Taste is something we don't appreciate and work enough, but knowing one's taste, developing and expressing it is a very important element of self-expression. Resultant elementals, this is the complete list. Some we have to work upon. Satisfaction, explore. Do you really have satisfaction in life to whatever stage you have come? And if not, are you ready to mourn and undergo a process of deep mourning to mourn all that you are not satisfied with? Frustration, accept and release. Anger, release. Sadism and masochism, if they are strong, then how to leave it out? If they are not strong, you can just leave them. There can be a very strong element of sadism and masochism in some of the bipolar cases, which may be just sadism or masochism, or it may involve sexual sadism and sexual masochism. Rejection, I have been rejected by somebody. If important, work on. Pain, it will always be there. Release. Acceptance of sadness, feeling of sadness, release of sadness. Envy, it will be there. It will come up. Accept and work on. Fear and guilt, accept and work on. Shame, explore. In some cases, it will be very intense. Other cases, we just have to let go. Narcissism also, you have to explore. I should have written here, explore. In some cases, you can have traits of narcissistic personality disorder comorbid to bipolar, or you can have a triple bipolar along with traits of OCPD and narcissism. Accumulating elementals. Schema. Find out what schemas are at work. This will always be there. Dysfunctional templates at work. Recognize them, bring it up in awareness, discuss them and work on them. Same with affective patterns. Complexes, explore if something is repeating again and again. Holding states, enhance. Tragic holding state, most often you will find, work on it so that it becomes ego dystonic and you can slowly get away from it. Attachment. Attachment pattern and attachment objects, they have to be worked upon. Usually we find in all personality disorders, attachment patterns are dysfunctional and attachment objects are not well selected. And if well selected, the person gets into a mode of object relations which is not healthy, and so the attachment, a healthy attachment cannot build up. And this may involve a lot of transferences, displacements and so on. Revulsion, if it is there, work on. If not, just let it pass. Freedom elementals, this is the complete list. You don't have to work on all of it. Free will, learn to exercise. And the idea here is free from my problems, free from my significant others, free from authorities. How can I exercise my free will out of my desire? And enhance the spontaneity. And this calls for a lot of confidence and feeling of I am good enough. And calls for a lot of practice. So this is how we look at the freedom elementals. So this is how we can look at pathogenesis and healing of bipolar from a heat point of view, which involves far more elements of holistic healing and spiritual healing compared to classical psychoanalysis.